Jaya Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jai Jai. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Vaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Vaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Nitai Go Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Premanande Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Shri Harinam Mahamantra Ki Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki Gaur Premanande Nitai Gaura Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Vati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Vanchako Patarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome to Naimisharanya. I'm going to begin today with reading from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, if I may. Hare Krishna Sri Mahaprabhu. I picked him at random because the library in the Brahmacharya ashram is a random library. There's no Dewey Decimal System there. So I picked whatever I could find. Chapter 18, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's visit to Vrindavana. Can everyone hear okay? Is everyone happy? I'm happy. This is happiness. This is happiness. Just look around. Take a look. This is what happiness looks like. The following summary of the 18th chapter is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Prabhaha Bhashya. In the village of Amrit Gram, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discovered the transcendental lakes known as Radhakunda and Shamakunda. He then saw the deity Haridev at Govardhan village. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had no desire to climb Govardhan hill. because the hill is worshipped as Krishna. The Gopal deity could understand the mind of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, on the plea of being attacked by Muslims, Gopal transferred himself to the village of Guntila Gram. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then went to Gantuli Gram. Gantuli Gram to see Lord Gopal. Some years later, Lord Gopal also went to Mathura, to the house of Vitaleshwara, and stayed there for 1 month just to give an audience to Srila Rupa Goswami. After visiting Nandeshwar, Pavana Sarovara, Sheshashayi, Kaila Tirtha, Bandiravan, Bhadravan, Lohavan, and Mahavan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Gokula and then finally returned to Mathura. Seeing a great crowd in Mathura, he moved his residence near Akura Ghat. And from there, he went every day to Vrindavan to see Kaliya Hrada, Dwadashatya Ghat, Keshi Ghat, Rasastali, Chira Ghat, and Amlital. At Kaliya Lake, many people mistook a fisherman for Krishna. When some respectable people came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they expressed their opinion that when one takes sannyas, he becomes Narayan. Their mistake was corrected by the Lord. In this way, their Krishna consciousness was awakened, and they could understand that a sannyasi is simply a living entity and not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his bath at Akura Ghat, he submerged himself in the water for a long time. Balabhadra Bhattacharya decided to take Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Prayag after visiting the holy place known as Soro Kshetra. While stopping near a village on the way to Prayag, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fainted in ecstatic love. Some Patana soldiers who were passing through saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and falsely concluded that the Lord's associates Balabhadra Bhattacharya and others had killed the Lord with a poison named Dutura and were taking his wealth. Thus the soldiers arrested them. However, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regained his senses, his associates were released. He talked with a person who was supposed to be a holy man in the party. From the Koran, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established devotional service to Krishna. Thus the leader of the soldiers, named Bijuli Khan, surrendered to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he and his party became devotees of Lord Krishna. Haribol! The same village today is known as the village of Patana Vaishnavas. After bathing in the Ganges at Soro, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at Prayag, at the confluence of 3 rivers, the Ganges, Jamuna, and Saraswati. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Vrindavane Stira Charan Nandayan Swavalokanai Atmanam Cha Tadalokad Gauranga Parito Brahmat. An original verse by Kaviraj Goswami. He puts at every beginning of every chapter. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled all over Vrindavan and pleased all living entities, moving and non-moving, with his glances. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled all over Vrindavan and pleased all living entities, moving and non-moving, with his glances. The Lord took much personal pleasure in seeing everyone. In this way, Lord Gauranga traveled in Vrindavan. Jai Jai Gaura Chandra, Jai Nityananda, Jai Dvaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Gaur Chandra. All glories to Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Prabhu. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, headed by Srivas Thakur. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced in ecstasy, but when he arrived at Adat Gram, his sense perception was awakened. Purport. Arit Gram is also called Arishta Gram. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood that in that village a Rishtasura had been killed by Sri Krishna. While there, he inquired about Radhakunda, but no one could tell him where it was. The Brahmana accompanying him could also not ascertain its whereabouts. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu could then understand that the holy place known as Radhakunda and Shamakunda, the holy places known as Radhakunda and Shamakunda, were at that time lost to everyone's vision. He therefore discovered Radhakunda and Shamakunda, which were two reservoirs of water in two paddy fields. Although there was very little water, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was omniscient and could understand that formerly these two ponds were called Sri Radhakunda and Shamakunda. In this way, Radhakund and Shamakund were discovered. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu asked the local people, "Where is Radhakunda?" No one could inform him, and the Brahmana accompanying him did not know either. The Lord then understood that the holy place called Radhakunda was no longer visible. However, being the omniscient Supreme Personality of Godhead, he discovered Radhakunda and Shamakunda in two paddy fields. There was only a little water, but he took his bath there. When the people of the village saw Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu taking his bath in those two ponds in the middle of the paddy fields, they were very much astonished. The Lord then offered his prayers to Sri Radhakunda. Shab gopi hoite Radha Krishnera priyasi, taiche Radha Kunda priya, priyar sharashi. Of all the gopis, Radharani is the dearmost. Similarly, the lake known as Radhakunda is very dear to the Lord because it is very dear to Srimati Radharani. Yata Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tata Sarva Gopishu Saivayika Vishnur Atyanta Balabha. Just as Srimati Radharani is most dear to Lord Krishna, so her lake, known as Radhakunda, is also very dear to him. Of all the gopis, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most beloved. Purport: this is a verse from the Padma Purana. In that lake, Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani used to sport daily in the water and have a rasa dance on the bank. Indeed, Lord Krishna gives ecstatic love like that of Srimati Radharani to whoever bathes in that lake even once in this life. The attraction of Radhakunda is as sweet as that of Srimati Radharani. Similarly, the glories of the Kund are as great as Srimati Radharani's. Because of its wonderful transcendental qualities, Radhakund is as dear to Krishna as Srimati Radharani. It was in that lake that the all-opulent Lord Sri Krishna performed his pastimes with Srimati Radharani with great pleasure and transcendental bliss. Whoever bathes just once in Radhakund attains Srimati Radharani's loving attraction for Sri Krishna. Who within this world can describe the glories and sweetness of Sri Radhakund? This verse is found in the Govinda Lilamrita. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu thus offered prayers to Radhakund. Overwhelmed by ecstatic love, he danced on the bank, remembering the pastimes of Lord Krishna, remembering the pastimes Lord Krishna performed in the bank of Radhakunda. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then marked his body with tilak made from the mud of Radhakund, and with the help of Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he collected some of the mud and took it with him. From Radhakunda, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went to Sumanas lake. When he saw Govardhana hill from there, he was overwhelmed with joy. When the Lord saw Govardhan hill, he immediately offered obeisances, falling down on the ground like a rod. He embraced one piece of rock from Govardhan hill and became mad. Mad with ecstatic love, the Lord came to the village known as Govardhan. There he saw the deity named Haridev and offered his obeisances to him. Haridev is an incarnation of Narayan, and his residence is on the western petal of the lotus of Mathura. Mad with ecstatic love, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu began to dance before the Haridev deity. Hearing of the Lord's wonderful activities, all the people came to see him. The people were astonished when they saw Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love and personal beauty. The priests who served the Haridev deity offered the Lord a good reception. At Brahmakund, the Bhattacharya cooked food, and the Lord, after taking his bath at Brahmakunda, accepted his lunch. That night, the Lord stayed at the temple of Haridev, and during the night, he began to reflect. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu thought, since I shall not at any time climb Govardhan Hill, how shall I be able to see Gopal Roy? Thinking in this way, the Lord remained silent, and Lord Gopal, knowing his contemplation, played a trick. Coming down from Govardhan Hill, Lord Gopal granted an interview to Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who was unwilling to climb the hill, thinking himself a devotee of Lord Krishna. Gopal stayed in a village named Anakut Gram on Govardhan Hill. The villagers who lived in that village were mainly from Rajasthan. Purport. The village named Anakut Gram is referred to in Bhakti Ratnakara, 5th wave. Quote, here all the gopis and the gopas enjoyed wonderful pastimes with Sri Krishna. Therefore this place is also called Aniyor. The Anakut ceremony was celebrated here. O Srivas, whoever sees this place has all his desires fulfilled. It is also stated, Kundera Nikata Deka, Nivida Kanana, Etai Gopa Chida Hoy, Sangopana. Look at the dense forest near the Kund. It was there that Gopal was concealed. Also in the Stavavali, by Raghunath Das Goswami. When Nanda Maharaj offered a large quantity of food to Govardhan Hill, Krishna assumed a gigantic form and eagerly invited everyone to ask boons from him. Then, deceiving even Srimati Radharani, he ate all the food. Then, deceiving even Srimati Radharani, he ate all the offered food. Let me take shelter of the place known as Anakut, where Lord Krishna enjoyed these pastimes. One person who came to the village informed the inhabitants, the Turkish soldiers are now preparing to attack your village. Flee this village tonight and do not allow one person to remain. Take the deity with you and leave, for the Muslim soldiers will come tomorrow. Hearing this, all the villagers became very anxious. They first took Gopal and moved him to a village known as Gantuli. The Gopal deity was kept in the house of a Brahmana, and his worship was conducted secretly. Everyone fled, and thus the village of Anakut was deserted. Due to fear of the Muslims, the Gopal deity was moved from one place to another again and again. Thus, giving up his temple, Lord Gopal would sometimes live in a bush and sometimes in one village after another. In the morning, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu took his bath in a lake called Manasaganga. He then circumambulated Govardhan Hill. Just by seeing Govardhan Hill, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu became ecstatic with love for Krishna. While dancing and dancing, he recited the following verse. Hantaya madhya balahari dasavaryo yadrama Krishna charanashvarasha pramodaha manam tanoti sahago ganayostayorya paniya suyavasakandana kandamulai. Of all the devotees, this Govardhan Hill is the best. O my friends, this hill supplies Krishna and Balaram, as well as their calves, cows and cowherd friends, with all kinds of necessities. Water for drinking, very soft grass, caves, fruits, flowers, and vegetables. In this way, the hill offers respect to the Lord. Being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, Govardhan appears very jubilant. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:21-18. It was spoken by the gopis when Lord Krishna and Balaram entered the forest in the autumn. the gopis spoke among themselves and glorified Krishna and Balaram for their pastimes. Huh? Oh, we don't mind upgrades. Sure. Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prabhu. See, if you just do the transcendental vibration, everything improves, right? It's the only process we have. Jai Jai Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Huh? It's more better. Hare Krishna. Are you all traveling in Vrindavana now? Isn't this nice? Remembering Anior and Manasa Ganga and everything. It's just, Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then took his bath in a lake called Govindakund Ki Jai. And while he was there, he heard that the Gopal deity had already gone to Gantuli Gram. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then went to the village of Gantuli Gram and saw the Lord Gopal deity. Overwhelmed by ecstatic love, he began to chant and dance. As soon as the Lord saw the beauty of the Gopal deity, he was immediately overwhelmed by ecstatic love, and he recited the following verse. He then chanted and danced until the day ended. Huh? Okay. Maybe it's my shirt has metal in it or something. It wasn't the volume, it was more the quality, I think. Hare Krishna. Nirkula? Any improvement? Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives the following information about Govindakund. There is a village named Anior on Govardhan Hill, a little distance from the village of Paita. Govindakund is situated near here, and there are 2 temples to Govinda and Baladev there. According to some, Queen Padmavati excavated this lake. In the Bhakti-Nakara, 5th wave, the following statement is found. E Shri Govindakund Mahima Anek. Eta Indra Koila Govindera Abhishek. Govindakund is exalted for its many spiritual activities. It was here that Indra, defeated by Lord Govinda, offered prayers to him and bathed him. In the books Devavali, the following verse is found. Quote, with humility caused by great fear, Indra took hold of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and in the company of a Surabhi cow performed his coronation festival by bathing him with the waters of the heavenly Ganges river. Thus Lord Krishna's kingship over the cows became splendidly manifest. I pray that Govindakund The lake created by that ceremonial bath may eternally appear before my eyes. Also, in the Mathura Kanda, it is stated, Yatrabhisheko Bhagavan Makona Jadu Varina Govinda Kundam Tachchatam Snan Matrina Mokshadam. Simply by bathing in Govinda Kund, one is awarded liberation. This lake was produced when Bhagavan Sri Krishna was bathed by Lord Indra. Ganduli Gram is situated near the two villages, Bilachu and Gopalpur. According to hearsay, Radha and Krishna first met here. In the Bhakti Ratnakar, 5th wave, it is stated, Sakhi Duha Bastre Gunti Dila Sangopane. The two concealed themselves by tying their outer garments together. It is also stated, Paguya Loya Keha Ganti Kuli Dila. With a paguya, they undid the knot. For this reason, the village is known as Ganduli. I don't know. Who knows what a paguya is? Any Vrajavasis or Indians here who know? No? Okay. All right. Research project. Who could research it? Call it Vrajavasi. Okay. Vamas tamarasakshasya bhujadanda sapatuva krida kandudakam nito govardhano giri. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, this is the verse that he was reciting, may the left arm of Sri Krishna, whose eyes are like petals of a lotus flower, always protect you. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, let the left arm of Sri Krishna, whose eyes are like the petals of a lotus flower, always protect you. With his left arm he raised Govardhan Hill as if it were a toy. This verse is found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.162. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the Gopal deity for 3 days. On the 4th day, the deity returned to his own temple. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu walked with the deity of Gopal, and he chanted and danced. A large and jubilant crowd of people also chanted the transcendental name of Krishna. Hari, Hari! Come on, that's not how they did it. The Gopal deity then returned to his own temple, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained at the bottom of the hill. Thus all the desires of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were satisfied by the Gopal deity. This is the way of Lord Gopal's kind behavior to his devotees. Seeing this, the devotees were overwhelmed by ecstatic love. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very eager to see Gopal, but he did not want to climb Govardhan Hill. Therefore, by some trick, the Gopal deity personally descended. In this way, giving some excuse, Gopal sometimes remains in the bushes of the forest, and sometimes he stays in a village. One who is a devotee comes to see this deity. The two brothers, Rupa and Sanatan, did not climb the hill. To them also, Lord Gopal granted an interview. In ripe old age, Srila Rupa Goswami could not go there, but he had a desire to see the beauty of Gopal. Yes. The deity, sorry. In this way, giving some excuse, Gopal sometimes remains in the bushes of the forest and sometimes he stays in a village. One who is a devotee comes to see the deity. The two brothers, Rupa and Sanatan, did not climb the hill. To them also, Lord Gopal granted an interview. In ripe old age, Srila Rupa Goswami could not go there, but he had a desire to see the beauty of Gopal. Due to fear of the Muslims, Gopal went to Mathura, where he remained in the house of Vitaleshwara for 1 full month. Purport. When the two brothers, Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, went to Vrindavan, they decided to live there. Following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's example, they did not climb the hill because they considered it non-different from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On some pretext, the Gopal deity granted Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu an audience beneath the hill, and Gopal similarly favored Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. During his ripe old age, when Rupa Goswami could not go to Govardhan Hill because of invalidity, Gopal kindly went to Mathura and remained at the house of Vitaleshwar for 1 month. It was then that Srila Rupa Goswami could see Gopal's beauty to his heart's content. The following description concerning Vitaleshwar is given in the Bhakti Ratnakara, 5th wave. Sri Balaba Bhatta had 2 sons. The elder Gopinath was born in 1432 Shakabda era, that's AD 1510, and the younger Vitaleshwar was born in 1437, that's 1515, and died in 1507, AD 1585. Vitaleshwar had 7 sons: Giridhar, Govinda, Balakrishna, Gokulesh, Raghunath, Yadunath, and Ganesham. Who can name them all? Huh? Without looking. Okay, he wins. He's very attentive. Okay. Vitaleshwar completed many of his father's unfinished books, including his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, the Subodhini commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, Vindan Mandana, Sringara Ras Mandana, and Nyasadesh Vivarana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Vrindavan before the birth of Vitaleshwar. As previously mentioned, Srila Rupa Goswami was very old at the time Gopal stayed at the house of Vitaleshwar. Srila Rupa Goswami and his associates stayed at Mathura for 1 month and saw the Gopal deity. When Rupa Goswami stayed at Mathura, he was accompanied by Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, and Lokanath Das Goswami. Purport. Sri Lokanath Goswami was a personal associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and a great devotee of the Lord. He was a resident of a village named Talakadi in the district of Yashohar, Jeshore, in Bengal. Previously, he lived in Kanchapada. His father's name was Padmanabha, and his only sibling was a younger brother named Pragalpa. Following the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Lokanath went to Vrindavan to live. He established a temple named Gokulananda. Sri Narottam Das Thakur selected Lokanath Das Goswami to be his spiritual master, and Narottam Das Thakur was his only disciple. Because Lokanath Das Goswami did not want his name mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we do not often see it in this celebrated book. On the EBR Railroad, the Jashohar station is located in Bangladesh. From the railway station, one has to go by bus to the village of Shonakali, and from there to Kejura. From there, one has to walk, or during the rainy season, go by boat to the village of Talakadi. In this village, there are still descendants of Lokanath Goswami's younger brother. 50. Bhugarbha Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Yadava Acharya, and Govinda Goswami also accompanied Srila Rupa Goswami. He was also accompanied by Sri Uddhava Das, Madhava, Sri Gopal Das, and Narayan Das. The great devotee Govinda, Vani Krishna Das, Pundarikaksha, Ishana, and Laghu Haridas also accompanied them. Purport. Laghu Haridas should not be confused with Junior Haridas, who committed suicide at Prayag. Generally, a devotee is called Haridas, and consequently there are many Haridasas. The chief was Thakur Haridas. There was also a Madhyama Haridas. In the Bhakti Ratnakara sixth wave, there is a list of many of the chief devotees who accompanied Srila Rupa Goswami. The following Vaishnavas were present with Srila Rupa Goswami: the merciful Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Bhugarbha Goswami, Sri Lokanath Das Goswami, a reservoir of good qualities, Sri Madhava, Sri Paramananda Bhattacharya, Sri Madhu Pandit, whose characteristics are all wonderful, Premi Krishnadas, who? Krishnadas Brahmachari, Yadava Acharya, the merciful Narayan, Sri Pundarikaksha Goswami, Govinda Ishana, Sri Govinda, the magnanimous Vani Krishnadas, Sri Uddhava, who occasionally visited Bengal, Dvija Haridas, Krishnadas Kaviraj, Sri Gopal Das, whose body is completely spiritual, Sri Gopal, Madhava, and many others. It was with great jubilation that Rupa Goswami visited Lord Gopal, accompanied by all these devotees. After staying in Mathura for 1 month, the Gopal deity returned to his own place, and Sri Rupa Goswami returned to Vrindavana. In the course of this story, I have given a description of Lord Gopal's mercy. After seeing the Gopal deity, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went to Kamyavan. Purport: Kamyavan is mentioned in the Adi Varaha Purana. Lord Shiva said, "The best of all forests is the fourth of these, named Kamaksha. O Goddess Devi, any person who goes there is eligible to enjoy the glories of my abode." In the Bhakti Ratnakara fifth wave, it is also said, "In this Kamyavan, Krishna performed enchanting pastimes. Here you will be able to take darshan of many ponds and other transcendental spots. I cannot even describe in writing all the sacred tirthas found at Kamyavan." How's everybody? Okay? Satisfied? See? Okay. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's touring Vrindavan has been previously described. In the same ecstatic way, he traveled all over Vrindavan. After visiting the places of Krishna's pastimes at Kamyavan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Nandishwar. While there, he was overwhelmed with ecstatic love. Purport: Nandishwar is the house of Maharaj Nanda. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bathed in all the celebrated lakes, beginning with Lake Pavana. Thereafter, he climbed a hill and spoke to the people. Purport: the Pavana Sarovara is described in the Mathura Mahatma. One who bathes in Pavana Lake by Nandishwar Hill will see Krishna there along with Nanda and Yashoda and will fulfill all his desires. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, "Are there any deities on top of this hill?" The local people replied, "There are deities on this hill, but they are located within a cave. There are a father and mother with well-built bodies, and between them is a very beautiful child who is curved in 3 places." Hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very happy. After excavating the cave, he saw the 3 deities. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered his respects to Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda. With great ecstatic love, he touched the body of Lord Krishna. Every day, the Lord chanted and danced in ecstatic love. Finally, he went to Kandiravan. Purport: Kandiravan is described in the Bhakti Ratnakara, 5th wave. Ekada Kadiravan Vidita Jagate Vishnu Loka Prapti Eta Gamana Matite. Behold the forest named Kandiravan, renowned throughout the universe. If one comes to Kandiravan, he can immediately be elevated to Vishnu Loka. After seeing the places of Lord Krishna's pastimes, Sri Chaitanya went to Sheshishayi, where he saw Lakshmi and recited the following verse. Yate sujata charanam guruham staneshu hita shanai huyata tadhi mahikarta sheshu tena tavim atasitad Vyatate Nakinswit Urpadi Dir Ramati Dir Bhavata Vishamna. O dearly beloved, your lotus feet are so soft, we place them gently on our breasts, fearing that your feet will be hurt. Our life rests only in you. Our minds, therefore, are filled with anxiety that your tender feet might be wounded by pebbles as you roam about on the forest path. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:31-19, spoken by the gopis when Krishna left them in the midst of the Rasa Leela. Yes, Prabhu? Yeah. Well, I'll do them intermittently, but I just wanted to get to a section that might be more, we'll just get a little momentum. Because once you get into questions, then you start going in all different directions. But it's kind of like just hearing for a while and, getting into the mood of hearing. It takes a while for, at least for me, the mind to settle down and then just like, okay, just here, I'm listening. But we'll definitely come to some junctures where we'll have discussion too. Afterwards, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu saw Kela Tirtha and then went to Mandiravan. After crossing the Jamuna River, he went to Madravan. Purport: in the Bhakti Ratnakara, it is said that Sri Krishna and Balaram used to play at Kela Tirtha with the cowherd boys during the entire day. Mother Yashoda had to call them to take their baths and eat their lunch. You remember from that section of Bhagavatam or Krishna book that Rohini goes and calls and they don't listen. Just like kids. They're playing, they don't want to stop. And then Yashoda had to go and say, listen, Nanda Maharaj is waiting for you. Come take your lunch, please. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then visited Shrivan and Lohavan. He then went to Mahavan and saw Gokula, the place of Lord Krishna's early childhood pastimes. Purport: of Shrivan, also called Bilvavan, the Bhakti Ratnakara states, Devata Pujita Bilvavan Shobhamoy. The beautiful forest of Bilvavan is worshipped by all the demigods. About Lohavan, Lohava, the Bhakti Ratnakara states, at Lohavan, Lord Krishna used to tend cows. The demon named Lohajanga was killed at that place. Which demon? Lohajanga. Lohajanga. What's your name, sir? Lohajanga. Mahavan is described as follows in the Bhakti Ratnakara. Behold the house of Nanda and Yashoda in Mahavan. See the birthplace of Lord Krishna. Mahavan and the birthplace of Lord Krishna, Gokula, are one and the same. Upon seeing the place where the twin Arjun trees had been broken by Sri Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was moved to great ecstatic love. After seeing Gokula, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Mathura, where he saw the birthplace of the Lord. While there, he stayed at the house of the Sanudiya Brahmana. Seeing a great crowd assemble at Mathura, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left and went to Akura Tirtha. He remained there in a solitary place. Akura Tirtha is also mentioned in the Bhakti Ratnakara fifth wave. Deka Srinivas e Akura Gramete, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Chilena Nibrite. O Srinivas, look at this village of Akura. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed there in a solitary place. The next day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Vrindavana and took his bath at Kaliya Lake and Praskandana. Purport: Kaliya Hrada is mentioned in the Bhakti Ratnakara. When one takes a bath in the Kaliya Hrada, he is freed from all sinful reactions. One can also be successful in business by bathing in Kaliya Hrada. After seeing the holy place called Praskandana, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Dwaraka. From there he went to Keshitirtha, and when he saw the place where the rasa dance had taken place, he immediately lost consciousness due to ecstasy. When the Lord regained his... I'm sorry? Oh, sorry. After seeing the holy place called Praskandana, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went to Dvadashaditya. From there he went to Keshitirtha, and when he saw the place where the rasa dance had taken place, he immediately lost consciousness due to ecstatic love. When the Lord regained his senses, he began to roll on the ground. He would sometimes laugh, cry, dance, and fall down. He would also chant very loudly. Being thus transcendently amused, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu passed that day happily at Keshitirtha. In the evening he returned to Akuratirtha, where he took his meal. The next morning Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Vrindavan and took his bath at Chiraghat. He then went to Tentuli Tala, where he took rest. The tamarind tree, named Tentuli Tala, was very old, having been there since the time of Lord Krishna's pastimes. Beneath the tree was a very shiny platform. Since the river Jamuna flowed near Tentuli Tala, a very cool breeze blew there. While there, the Lord saw the beauty of Vrindavan and the water of the river Jamuna. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu used to sit beneath the old tamarind tree and chant the holy name of the Lord. At noon he would return to Akuratirtha to take lunch. All the people who lived near Akuratirtha came to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and due to the large crowds, the Lord could not peacefully chant the holy name. Therefore, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu would go to Vrindavan and sit in a solitary place where he would chant the holy name until noon. In the afternoon, people were able to speak to him. The Lord told everyone of the importance of chanting the holy name. During this time, a Vaishnava named Krishnadas came to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He was a householder belonging to the Kshatriya caste, and his house was located on the other side of the Jamuna. After bathing at Keshitirtha, Krishnadas went towards Kaliyadaha and suddenly saw Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu sitting at Amlital, also known as Tentulidal. Tentulidala. Upon seeing the Lord's personal beauty and ecstatic love, Krishnadas was very much astonished. Out of ecstatic love, he offered his respectful obeisances unto the Lord. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu asked Krishnadas, "Who are you? Where is your home?" Krishnadas replied, "I am a most fallen householder. I belong to the Rajput caste, and my home is just on the other side of the river Jamuna. But I wish to be the servant of a Vaishnava. Today, I have had a dream, and according to that dream, I have come here and found you." Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then bestowed upon Krishnadas his causeless mercy by embracing him. Krishnadas became mad with ecstatic love and began to dance and chant the holy name of Hari. Krishnadas returned to Akuratirtha with the Lord, and remnants of the Lord's food were given to him. The next morning, Krishnadas went with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to Vrindavan and carried his water pot. Krishnadas thus left his wife, home, and children in order to remain with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Everywhere the Lord went, all the people said, "Krishna has again manifested at Vrindavan." One morning, many people came to Akuratirtha. As they came from Vrindavan, they made a tumultuous sound. Upon seeing Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, all the people offered respects at his lotus feet. The Lord then asked them, "Where are you all coming from?" The people replied, "Krishna has again manifested himself on the waters of the Kaliya lake. He dances on the hoods of the serpent Kaliya, and the jewels on those hoods are blazing. Everyone has seen Lord Krishna himself. There is no doubt about it." Hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to laugh. He then said, everything is correct. For 3 successive nights, people went to Kaliyadaha to see Krishna, and everyone returned saying, now we have seen Krishna himself. Everyone came before Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and said, now we have directly seen Lord Krishna. Thus, by the mercy of the goddess of learning, they were made to speak the truth. When the people saw Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, they actually saw Krishna. But because they were following their own imperfect knowledge, they accepted the wrong thing as Krishna. At that time, Balabhadra Bhattacharya placed a request at the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, please give me permission to go see Lord Krishna directly. Purport: the puzzled people who visited Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu were actually seeing Lord Krishna, but they were mistaken in thinking that Lord Krishna had come to Kaliya Lake. They all said that they had seen Krishna directly performing his pastimes on the hoods of the serpent Kaliya, and that the jewels on Kaliya's hoods were blazing brilliantly. Because they were speculating with their imperfect knowledge, they saw Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu as an ordinary human being and a boatman's light in the lake as Krishna. One must see things as they are through the mercy of a spiritual master. Otherwise, if one tries to see Krishna directly, he may mistake an ordinary man for Krishna or Krishna for an ordinary man. Everyone has to see Krishna according to the verdict of Vedic literatures presented by the self-realized spiritual master. A sincere person is able to see Krishna through the transparent via medium of Sri Gurudev, the spiritual master. Unless one is enlightened by the knowledge given by the spiritual master, he cannot see things as they are, even though he remains constantly with the spiritual master. This incident at Kaliyadaha is very instructive for those eager to advance in Krishna consciousness. I'm going to attempt to move up by about 1.5 feet. Could we do it simultaneously? We need a couple hands. This side too. Everything move 1 foot and 1 inch. Go. Sorry for any encroachment. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Everyone okay? Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, we'll be here all day. We'll come back later. We'll be here all week. When Balabhadra Bhattacharya asked to see Krishna at Kaliyadaha, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu mercifully slapped him, saying, "You are a learned scholar, but you have become a fool, being influenced by the statements of other fools." Purport: Maya is so strong that even a person like Balabhadra Bhattacharya, who is constantly staying with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, is influenced by the words of fools. He wanted to see Krishna directly going to Kaliyadaha, but Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, being the original spiritual master, would not allow his servant to fall into such foolishness. He therefore chastised him, slapping him, just to bring him to a real sense of Krishna consciousness. Why would Krishna appear in this age of Kali? Foolish people who are mistaken are simply causing agitation and making a tumult. Purport: Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's first statement, Krishna Krishna Darshana Dibe Kalikale, refers to the scriptures. According to scripture, Krishna appears in Dwapara Yuga, but he never appears as himself in Kali Yuga. Rather, he appears in Kali Yuga in a covered form. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.32, Krishna Varnam Tushak, Krishnam Sangupangastra Parshadam. Krishna appears in the age of Kali in the garb of a devotee. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who always associates with his internal soldiers, Sri Advaita Prabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Sri Vas Prabhu, and Gadadhar Prabhu. Although Balabhadra Bhattacharya was personally serving Lord Krishna in his role as a devotee, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he mistook Lord Krishna for an ordinary man and an ordinary man for Lord Krishna because he did not follow the rules set down by Shastra and Guru. Do not become mad. Simply sit down here and tomorrow night you will go see Krishna. The next morning, some respectable gentleman came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Lord asked him, "Have you seen Krishna?" These respectable gentlemen replied, "At night in Kalia Lake, a fisherman lights a torch in his boat and catches many fish." From a distance, people mistakenly think they are seeing Krishna dancing on the body of the Kaliya serpent. These fools think that the boat is the Kaliya serpent and the torchlight the jewels on his head. People also mistake the fisherman for Krishna. Actually, Lord Krishna has returned to Vrindavan. That is the truth. And it is also true that people have seen him. But where they are seeing Krishna is their mistake. It is like considering a dry tree to be a person. Purport. The word stanu means a dry tree without leaves. From a distance, one may mistake such a tree for a person. This is called stanu purusha. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was living in Vrindavan, the inhabitants considered him an ordinary human being, and they mistook the fisherman to be Krishna. Every human being is prone to make such mistakes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was mistaken for an ordinary sannyasi. The fisherman was mistaken for Krishna, and the torchlight was mistaken for bright jewels on Kaliya's hoods. Prabhu kahe, kahan paila Krishna darshan, loka kahe, sannyasi tumi, jangama narayan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then asked them, "Where have you seen Krishna directly?" The people replied, "You are a sannyasi, a renunciate. Therefore, you are a moving Narayan, Jangama Narayana." Purport. This is the viewpoint of Mayavad philosophy. Mayavad philosophy supports the impersonalist view that Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has no form. One can imagine impersonal Brahman in any form as Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, Vivaswan, Ganesh, or Devi Durga. According to the Mayavad philosophy, when one becomes a sannyasi, he is to be considered a moving Narayan. Mayavad philosophy holds that the real Narayan does not move because, being impersonal, he has no legs. Thus, according to Mayavad philosophy, whoever becomes a sannyasi declares himself Narayan. Foolish people accept such ordinary human beings as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Vivartavad. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that Jangama Narayan means that the impersonal Brahman takes a shape and moves here and there in the form of a Mayavadi sannyasi. The Mayavad philosophy confirms this. Danda grahana matrena naro narayano bhavet. Simply by accepting the danda, or the order of sannyas, one is immediately transformed into Nara. Simply by accepting the danda, or the order of sannyas. What? Danda of the order, thank you. Okay, simply by accepting the danda of the order of sannyas, one is immediately transformed into Narayan. Thus, Mayavadi sannyasis address one another by saying, Om Namo Narayanaya. In this way, one Narayan worships another Narayan. Actually, an ordinary human being cannot become Narayan. As the chief Mayavadi sannyasi, Sri Shankara says, Narayana paro vyaktat. Narayan is not a creation of this material world. Narayan is above the material creation. Due to their poor fund of knowledge, Mayavadi sannyasis think that Narayan, the absolute truth, takes birth as a human being, and that when he realizes this, he becomes Narayan again. They never consider why Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, would accept an inferior position as a human being and then again become Narayan when he is perfect. Why should Narayan be imperfect? Why should he appear as a human being? Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu very nicely explained these points well at Vrindavana. We'll just take a first break if anybody wants to reflect anything back or make a question. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Look up A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada Swami World Tour.
And it's Prabhupada's travels from 1971 to 77.
Prabhupada's travels from 1971 to 1977. Brought to you live from this reading today. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. We'll pass it on to everybody. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay.
We were looking up a word, Aguya.
Aguya.
According to the Indian dictionary, Aguya means Kagun, holy. The tradition of holies today is that in the morning playing holy with dirt and mud, bathing.
It's a holy day in which one plays holy.
I think the whole has to be named holy. With the
Aguya. Okay.
outer, that was from the readings.
Thank you very much. I recall that it was something about undoing something. It sounded like an instrument.
But I probably
Okay, that's all right. You just lack context. That's all. Prabhu.
Yeah, how do we understand this idea of Muslims being able to give the devotees trouble?
How do we understand how the idea of the Muslims being able to give the devotees trouble?
With the Haridev deities right there.
In with the Haridev deity right there.
And there's so many other instances of that. But when you think, when somebody from the outside who didn't understand this philosophy, go, what kind of God is out there that is going to protect the devotees? And he's there, personally present in his deity form.
And then somebody from the outside might look and say, what kind of God is it that can't protect his devotees from the outside? Well, in the Lord's pastimes, when he manifests himself, even when he's personally present, there's all kinds of shenanigans going on by demons here, there, and everywhere all over the planet. It's not it's not that Krishna doesn't give opportunity for the demons to express their independence also. They're also living entities, and they have, as Krishna says, Samoham Sarvabhuteshu Namadveshasti Napriya. He doesn't violate the living entity's sense of freedom. As an example, philosophically, there are various ways in which he allows for people to come up with all kinds of different philosophies. And as a supersoul, Sarvasya Chaham Riddhi Sanivishto Maptak Smitya Jnanam Aponam Cha, he supports them if they're determined for that, if they're adamant about taking a particular viewpoint. Then Krishna says, I give them the intelligence so that they can really support that. And he'll also give a community all facility to develop based on that philosophy, what to speak of a whole nation. And simultaneously, he offers the opportunity for others who want to surrender to him to take shelter. So Krishna's not like that he just like, okay, he's because he's there, there's no there's no what?
Scope.
There's no scope for expressing your independence and smashing this or that and doing whatever you want. Even sometimes temples are attacked. But it doesn't mean that Krishna is attacked directly, because that's the misconception of the person who's attacking it. I think we just got Krishna, but Krishna is not material. They're seeing something material and they're trying to break it, but obviously Krishna's never broken. And in some cases, I mean, just look at the whole scenario of Lord Buddha appearing and decrying the Vedic literatures wholesale in order to get somewhere. And that's a circuitous route that he takes, Krishna, coming as Buddha and then saying, don't listen to the Vedas. And there is no God. And Prabhupada talks about this frequently. And then everyone goes, yeah, okay, no Vedas, no God. And they follow him, but he said, he's cheating them because he is God. And he's saying, like, just follow me, don't follow God. And they go, yes. And like Prabhupada said, this is cheating. So Krishna has to make all kinds of arrangements, and he's perfectly capable of doing it in different combinations and permutations to accommodate the unlimited and various desires of the living entities. However, as he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Shripram bhavati dharma ma shashvash chantim nagashati konteya pratijanihi nambi bhakti pranashiti. Declare boldly, Arjuna, my devotee is never vanquished. It doesn't say that the devotee's body is never vanquished, but the devotee, I mean, the body is going to be vanquished by material nature anyway, or by the time factor. So it's not talking about, you don't get a cut because you went before the deity or something like that, or you don't experience any loss or gain in the world. But what it means is, ultimately, Krishna is always giving the devotee an opportunity to continue his devotional service. Even if somebody, he says in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, makes some progress but then falls away, then he's not lost. And Ramchandra says, if one time somebody says, I'm your devotee, then see, it's from forevermore I protect that person. It's not like it's just one declaration in sincerity. He says, I take shelter of you. And Lord Ram says, from that day forward, for eternity, I'll always protect that devotee. Was that all right? Okay, good. Any other things you remember? You want to churn it a little bit? Yes.
The beginning of the reading.
In the beginning of the reading,
When we were hearing that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
we heard about Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu.
he didn't want to go to see Deity Gopal.
He didn't want to go see the deity
And similarly happened with
Gopal.
Sri Rupa and Sanatana
And
too.
similarly happened with Sri Rupa and Sanatana.
Then the Lord understood that they didn't want to break the principle, so he came down.
Yeah, so Krishna understood that they don't want to walk on the hill, so they came down. He came down just to avail himself so they could have his darshan.
So my question was that if he actually, is that similar to the Shakshi Gopal pastime when the Lord actually physically went there, or a devotee brought it down?
Is that similar to the Shakshi Gopal pastime where the Lord walked behind the young Brahmana and it came to the village? Well, it's similar in one sense, is that Krishna is a person. I was talking to Tamal Krishna Maharaj's brother. Kalachandji. I was talking to Kalachandji and his wife Shratanjali, and they were telling me about a book someone had written called Your Child is a Person. Because some people might forget it's actually a person there. And we were just kind of musing about how we should have a book called Your God is a Person too. So the point is, Krishna's personal. He can appear, he does appear in his deity form, Archa, in 8 different forms, like wood, stone, metal, earth, paint, the mind. Two more. Clay said earth. Wood, jewels. Thank you. Okay, so, and then, he performs his pastimes there. It's called Archa, special mercy incarnation, so that the devotees can handle him. Years in various places, he goes to Venice Beach and so forth. And as it mentioned in that purport, that sometimes he likes to be hidden in the forest. That's what Madhavendra Puri, when he came to Vrindavan, he sat down. He never asked anybody for anything, but then a little boy appeared and said, "Oh, nobody fasts in my town. You should take this milk." Like, he was surprised, was Madhavendra Puri, because he's like, how did you know? And where did you come from? And then after giving him the milk, the boy disappeared, and then Madhavendra Puri had a dream. He dozed a little, and then he dreamed that Gopal was there in the brush, and he was calling, "Please come and assist me. Please come take me out." So when he came out from his dream, he got together with all the townspeople, and he said, "Krishna's in there, and we have to get him out." So they went in there with choppers, because the brush was very thick, and they dug in that place, and they found the beautiful deity, and brought him out. And then Madhavendra Puri set up a spot for him on the hill, and began a little simple process. But then one after another, two brahmanas came from Bengal, and he very much liked them, so he put them on as full-time pujaris, and people came and they gave cows and they gave everything. And then the temple grew up around the Lord. So, I mean, these are all personal pastimes of Krishna, but the devotees, Prabhupada talks about this, how the devotees know these, they feel them because Krishna's reciprocating with them. If somebody wants to believe that Krishna is wood and that he can't come in this form, then Krishna gives them the intelligence to feel like that. Like the Arya Samaj. It's like God's all pervading. And Prabhupada always says, then how come he's not in the temple? You say he's everywhere, but then you say he's not here in this form. Like, how can that be? Yes, Prabhu?
Somebody else?
Yeah, I just, back in January.
In January.
I was reading with a godbrother, Namashranya Prabhu.
Devavrata Prabhu was reading with Naimisharya Prabhu.
And we were reading Brihat Bhagavatamrita.
Reading Brihat Bhagavatamrita.
And there was a point that came up that it was talking about how Gopal Kumar would achieve Bhagavat Darshan via Nam Sankirtan.
There was a point about how Gopal Kumar would achieve a darshan with the Lord through Nam Sankirtan.
And then my godbrother was a bit confused because he heard a class by a particular devotee in ISKCON.
And his godbrother was confused because he heard another class by somebody else in ISKCON.
That was saying that in Kali Yuga,
They would said in Kali Yuga,
the only type of darshan that is possible is antar darshan, not
the only
bahir darshan.
the only type of darshan that's possible is antar darshan,
rather
not
than
bahir darshan.
And then he quotes this verse from Caitanya Charitamrita to back up his claim.
And he quotes this verse from Caitanya Charitamrita to back up his claim.
It was text 101 from this particular chapter. Krishna Kena Darshana Ibe Kali Kale Nija Brahme Murka Loka Kare Kola Hale. Why will Krishna appear?
Why will Krishna appear in the age of Kali?
Foolish people who are mistaken are simply
Foolish people
causing
who are
agitation
mistaken.
and making it homework.
Yeah, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoted that verse to point out that Krishna doesn't appear in Kali Yuga to dance on Kali and so forth.
So the devotee was making the point that due to this verse, Antar Darshan is the only type of darshan a devotee can attain. But in Brihat Bhagavatamrita and also in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs, there's substantial evidence for achieving Antar Darshan through
There's
Nam Sankirtan.
Antar Darshan through Nam Sankirtan. Bahir Darshan through Nam Sankirtan.
So maybe you could just elaborate on this point if Bahir Darshan is actually possible in Kali Yuga.
Well, the Lord appears in various forms. and he's manifest as we just spoke about in the Archa form. He comes and is visible to his devotees. Fact is, as we're hearing from this section anyway, even when Krishna is personally present, or even if somebody's his disciple, he can't see him unless he's actually following the process properly. You can't, even when Krishna appears, people can't see him. And if you don't avoid the 10 offenses, you can't see Krishna in the holy name either. Not possible. Fact is, Krishna is always manifest. He's manifest in the universal form. He's manifest in the taste of water. Hare Krishna Partrikananda Prabhu. Welcome. But only the devotees can see him.
And even then, by Krishna's will, Lord Chaitanya's associates didn't realize who they were associated with.
Sometimes.
Even Lord Chaitanya's associates at first didn't know who they were associating with, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't reveal himself when he was in Navadvip. He was personally manifest. So just on principle, one can't see Krishna directly unless Nayamatma Pravachanena Labhyona Medhayana Bahuna Shutena Yami Vaisha Vrinute Tena Labhyas Te Shaisha Tashaisha Eva Vrinute Tanun Swam. He reveals himself. He can't be seen. If you're Nayamatma Pravachanena, if you're really good at giving talks, he won't reveal himself. If you're really smart, he won't reveal himself necessarily. If Nayamatma Pravachanena Labhyo Na Medhaya Na Bahuna Shutena, or you're very learned, you might know all the Shastras, he won't reveal himself. Tashaisha Eva Vrinute Tanun Swam. He reveals himself to whomever he chooses. He personally chooses. And I think that your argument about Bahar Dasha. Yes, Prabhu.
There's two instances of Lord Chaitanya revealing himself. Actually, more. Lord Chaitanya revealed himself to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya.
Lord Chaitanya reveals himself to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in Kali Yuga,
Ramananda Roy in the
and Ramananda Roy,
form, right?
Satpuj form.
And then in that Sata Prahar, whatever. Prahar Leela, he
The Mahaprakash.
yeah, he
in
revealed
Srivas
himself to all sorts
Angam.
of different devotees in all sorts of different ways. So
Okay,
seems like a contradiction.
there you have it. There it is. Okay, any other points? And we'll keep reading. 1, 2, and then. Oh, sorry, Brigu Prabhu, it was your turn.
Well, it seemed a little bit strange to me.
Seemed a
that,
little strange to Brigu
Lord
Prabhu.
Chaitanya went, he was in that the village. And
Lord
he
Chaitanya
asked
was
the
in that
people,
village.
"Is there a deity?"
Ask the
Deities
people
up
if there is a deity in there,
And they said,
in the-
yeah, in the cave.
in the cave.
And he had to excavate
He had to excavate the
the
cave.
So it didn't sound like the people had too much interest in the deity.
It didn't sound like the people had too much interest in the deity. Well, deities are hard to maintain. That's why Prabhupada made such a big deal of it and training us up about how to maintain deities, because all it takes, I mean, you know, in the story of Raghunath Das Swami, you know how he escaped? Because the Pujari didn't show up. And Yadunandan Acharya said, oh, what are we going to do? We don't have a Pujari. That was, you know, back then. And he said to Raghunath Das, can you go talk to the Pujari and get him to come? And he said, yeah, I'll do that. It was 3 a.m, and then he took off, and they didn't catch him that time. That was the last time he took off. So deities are really hard to maintain, and you find deities all over the world that unless there's somebody really dedicated, and then there's succession. I mean, you see a lot of the deities of the acharyas. You'll notice that you know, some of them were saved in the nick of time, rebuilding the temple. Like where were we? Around Navadvip, you find some of the old temples. They're just being rebuilt, but time is pretty heavy force. You know, it comes and you just think we got this, and then a little while later we don't have it. And so, you know, it happens with deity worship also. So people have to be really careful about worshiping deities, because then you got to keep worshiping them, and you can't stop. And it happens all the time that deities get, you know, abandoned, and then they're hidden until The only reason deities come out anyway is to see the devotees. This is mentioned in third canto about in Vidura's travels. He went to see the different forms of the Lord at all these pilgrimage places, and Prabhupada mentions that the reason that the deities are extant in the world is because of his devotees. They come to see, the deity comes to see the devotee or manifest according to the desire of the devotee. Like in Juhu, the deity manifested because Prabhupada wanted him to come there, and he promised Krishna, I'm going to make a place for you here. So then when, the big festival's over and everyone's gone and it's just one pujari, and then that pujari leaves, and next thing you know, deity's in a cave and needs to be excavated. So it happens. And the people sometimes they're not trained, they don't have knowledge, they don't know, what the deity is, and so the pure devotee has to come and say, yeah, that's Krishna. That's the only way you see Krishna is through a pure devotee who says, that's Krishna, and then everyone goes, that's Krishna? We didn't know that was Krishna. Okay, now what do we do? It's like you worship him, and then that's how you do it. But the material world, movements come and go. It's really hard to hold on to anything in this world because people come and go, buildings come and go, governments change over time. You don't know what's going to happen next. You say can't worship. Try worshiping deities in China. They're not into it right now because they're clamping down on everybody. Sorry, this is being broadcast. No offense or anything.
They probably can't see it.
No, I was talking to the president of China. He's probably watching. Okay. Okay, yes, one more and then we'll read more.
I was still with the first question that Brigo asked you, and you gave a nice answer, but something that I stuck in my mind is about
It's going back to the first question, but there's something more he wants to get out of it.
Yeah, that Krishna is so liberal.
Krishna is so liberal
that he allows the individuality and the expressions of that person. He doesn't suppress. For example,
he's so liberal he doesn't suppress the individuality of the person. For example,
Uddhava is having a conversation with Krishna in the 14th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Uddhava is having a conversation with Krishna in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavatam,
where he mentions that, my dear Lord, there are different various opinions, different philosophies.
he mentions there are different various opinions and philosophers.
So how to understand which is, then you also explain what is the best process of devotional
And you also explain what is the best process, which is devotional
so
service.
then Krishna explained, yes, in the beginning of creation, Lord Brahma came, and then from then the 7 rishis, and then all the procreation was done.
And he explained that in the beginning of creation there was 7 rishis, and then all the creation was done.
Then he said that he mentions the demigods, the devas, the charanas, the
He mentions the
siddhas,
demigods, the devas, the charanas,
demons and atheists.
demons and atheists.
So now the question will be,
The question
how
will
is
be,
it that the Supreme Lord that supposed to do everything good to be in harmony, he creates this personality?
how is it that he creates these personalities who are out of sync with dharma?
And then the conclusion that I
And the
thought
conclusion that Prabhu is bringing,
is that, and you also explained, he doesn't interfere.
He doesn't interfere.
He allows you to express yourself.
he allows you to express yourself.
But at the same time, he also mentions that if you take that position, you
But
will
he also
never be
mentions,
happy.
if you take that position, you won't be happy.
Meaning like the atheist philosophy, impersonalism, and
Atheists, impersonalists.
or the process will be very delayed. Now, at the end, he concludes by devotional service.
At the end, he concludes with devotional
That's
service.
the only thing that can bring happiness.
That's the only thing that can bring happiness.
So I just wanted to mention that, more than anything was that he himself, the Lord, allows everyone to express the way you want to, but it might not be the best.
It may not be the best, but he still allows you. Sure. Thank you. Yeah, it's a very helpful philosophical point. It's also mentioned in the first canto, 2nd chapter. Asau gunamayar bhaver bhuta sukshmendriyatmavi sanirmiteshu nirvishto bhunkte bhuteshu tadgunan. That when the creation starts, then Krishna reminds each individual living entity where he was. in the last creation, and you want to start up again. You were on your way to Home Depot, and did you want to build that house? Okay, let's hear a little bit more. Everyone okay? Let's stand up just for 1 second of Brahma. Haribol. I don't know. It could use a little adjustment. It's got a couple of little... it could be louder, right? You're a sound person, right? Is there?
I'm an unsound person.
Do we have a sound specialist? You want to turn it up a 10? Try. Sure.
I think this is as loud as this one goes.
Okay. It's as loud as it gets.
I think we use this one for the Brahma's region.
Oh, thank you very much.
Dad, you used to use that one.
Yeah, it's
Just any shirt.
Prabhu, would you please hand me that drum? We'll have a short intermission. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan. Giridhari Gopinath Madan Mohan. Shri Caitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhattaraguna. Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna. Ichai Gosai Kori Charanam Vandan. Jaha Hoite Vignanash Abhishta Puran. Ichai Gosai Jar Muitarda. Tansabara Pararinu Mora Panchagra. Chandera Shanana Sevi Bhakta Saniva. Janame Hoye Abila. Ichai Gosai Jabe Bhaje Koilaba. Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Koila Prakash. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Koila Prakash. Bolo Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavana. Bolo Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavana. Shri Guru Vaishnava Padi Madhu. Where they are seeing Krishna is their mistake. It is like considering a dry tree to be a person. Where did we finish?
I think you're up to then.
109. 110 I'm at.
110, yeah.
The people then said, "You have appeared in Vrindavan as an incarnation of Krishna. Just by seeing you, everyone is now liberated." Prabhu kahe, Vishnu, Vishnu, iha na kahiba. Jiva dame Krishna, gyan tabu na kariba. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately exclaimed, "Vishnu, Vishnu, do not call me the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A jiva cannot become Krishna at any time. Do not even say such a thing." Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately stated that a living being, however exalted he may be, should never be compared to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching protests. All of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching protests the monistic philosophy of the Mayavad school. The central point of Krishna consciousness is that the jiva, the living entity, can never be accepted as Krishna or Vishnu. This viewpoint is elaborated in the following verses. A sannyasi in the renounced order is certainly part and parcel of the complete whole. Just as a shining molecular particle of sunshine is part and parcel of the sun itself, Krishna is like the sun, full of six opulences, but the living entity is only a fragment of the complete whole. A living entity and the absolute personality of Godhead are never to be considered equal, just as a fragmental spark can never be considered the original flame. Purport. Mayavadi sannyasis consider themselves Brahman, and they superficially speak of themselves as Narayan. The monistic disciples of the Mayavad school, known as Smarta Brahmanas, are generally householder Brahmanas who accept the Mayavadi sannyasis as Narayan incarnate. Therefore, they offer their obeisances to them. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately protested this unauthorized system, specifically mentioning that a sannyasi is nothing but a fragmental portion of the Supreme, Chit Kana Jiva. In other words, he is nothing more than an ordinary living being. He is never Narayan, just as a molecular portion of sunshine is never the sun itself. The living entity is nothing but a fragmental part of the Absolute Truth. Therefore, at no stage of perfection can a living entity become the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This Mayavad view is always condemned by the Vaishnava school. So, a living being can become the Supreme Personality of Godhead. True or false?
False.
Abai, true or false? False.
False.
Very good. You're listening. Even though you fidget, you listen. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself protested this philosophy. When the Mayavadis accept sannyas and consider themselves Narayan, they become so puffed up that they do not even enter the temple of Narayan to offer respects, for they falsely think themselves Narayan himself. Although Mayavadi sannyasis may offer respects to other sannyasis and address them as Narayan, they do not go to a Narayan temple and offer respects. These Mayavadi sannyasis are always condemned and are described as demons. The Vedas clearly state that living entities are subordinate parts and parcels of the Supreme. Eko bahunam yo viditati kaman. The Supreme Being, Krishna, maintains all living entities. Ladinya sampid ashlishta sakchid ananda ishvara swadit savidya savrito jiva sanklesha nirakakara. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller, is always full of transcendental bliss and is accompanied by the potencies known as Hladini and Samvit. The conditioned soul, however, is always covered by ignorance and embarrassed by the threefold miseries of life. Thus he is a treasure house of all kinds of tribulations. Purport. This quotation of Vishnu Swami is cited in Sridhar Swami's Bhavarta Deepika commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam 176. Jay Muda Kahe, Jeev Ishvar hoy sam, Sheta pashandi hoy, dande tar jam. A foolish person who says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the same as the living entity is an atheist, and he becomes subject to punishment by the superintendent of death, Yamaraj. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that the word pashandi refers to one who considers the living entity under the control of the illusory energy to be equal with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all material qualities. Another kind of pashandi is one who does not believe in the spirit soul, the superior potency of the Lord, and therefore does not distinguish between spirit and matter. While describing one of the offenses against chanting the holy names, specifically the offense called Shruti Shastra Nindra, blaspheming the Vedic literature, Jiva Goswami states in his Bhakti Sandarbha, Yata Pashanda Margena Datatre Yarshabha Devo Pasadinam. Worshippers of impersonalists like Dattatreya are also Pashandis. Concerning the offense of Aham Mama Buddhi, or Dehatma Buddhi, considering the body to be the self, Jiva Goswami states, Deva Dravinadi Nimitta Pashanda Shabdena Cha Dashaparadha Eva Lakshante Pashanda Mayatvatesham. Those who are overly absorbed in the conception of the body and the bodily necessities are called Pashandis. Elsewhere in the Bhakti Sandarbha, it is stated, a Pashandi is one who considers the demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be one. Therefore, Pashandi worships any kind of demigod as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who disobeys the orders of the spiritual master is also considered a Pashandi. The word Pashandi has been described in many places in Srimad Bhagavatam, including 4:2, 28, and 30, and 32, 5, 6, 9, and 12, 2, 13, and 3, 43. On the whole, a Pashandi is a non-devotee who does not accept the Vedic conclusions. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, there is a verse quoted from the Padma Purana describing the Pashandi. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu quotes this verse in the following text: Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivatai Samatvenaiva Viksheta Sa Pashandi Bhavedruvam. A person who considers demigods like Brahma and Shiva to be on an equal level with Narayan is to be considered an offender or Pashandi. After Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu explained the difference between an ordinary living being and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the people said, "No one considers you an ordinary human being. You are like Krishna in every respect, in both bodily features and characteristics. By your bodily features, we can see that you are none other than the son of Nanda Maharaj, although the golden luster of your body has covered your original complexion. As the aroma of deer musk cannot be concealed by wrapping it in a cloth, your characteristics as the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be concealed by any means." It's nice, huh? I'll read the Bengali. Mriga mada vastra bhande tabu na lukai ishvara subhava tomar taka nahi jai. Mriga mada, a deer musk, vastre in a cloth, bande, wraps, tabu, still, na, not, lukaya is concealed, ishvara subhava, characteristics as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, tomar, of you, taka nahi jaya, you are not concealed. As the aroma of deer musk cannot be concealed by wrapping it in a cloth, your characteristics as the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be concealed by any means. How do you like that verse on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being like, you'll never be the same ever again after hearing it.
10.
11.
11.
You're an 11 type of person. Very good. 120. Indeed, your characteristics are uncommon and beyond the imagination of an ordinary living being. Simply by seeing you, the entire universe becomes mad with ecstatic love for Krishna. If they see you just once, even women, children, old men, meat-eaters, and members of the lowest caste immediately chant the holy name of Krishna, dance like madmen, and become spiritual masters capable of delivering the whole world. Say what? If they see you just once, even women, children, old men, meat-eaters, and members of the lowest caste immediately chant the holy name of Krishna, dance like madmen, and become spiritual masters capable of delivering the whole world. Hare Krishna. Can I get a Hare Krishna on that one? Hare Krishna. Apart from seeing you, whoever listens to your holy name is made mad with ecstatic love for Krishna and is able to deliver the three worlds. Count them three. Simply by hearing your holy names, dog-eaters become holy saints. Your uncommon potencies cannot be described in words. Yanamadheya shravanadu kirtanad yat pravanad yat smaradad api kochit shradho pisadya savanaya kalpate kutakpunaste bhagavan nudarshanad. To say nothing of the spiritual advancement of persons who see the Supreme Person face to face, even a person born in a family of dog-eaters becomes immediately eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if he once utters the holy name of the personality of Godhead, or chants about him, hears about his pastimes, offers him obeisances, or even remembers him. Haribol! For an explanation of this verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 333.6, see Madhya, chapter 16, text 186. Prabhupada's so meticulous. I mean, is this how much work it takes to cross-reference everything? And he goes into so much detail in all of his purports to firmly establish the knowledge system for this process of Krishna consciousness. It's all meticulously laid out here. It's amazing, right? These glories of yours are only marginal. Originally, you are the son of Maharaj Nanda. Purport. The original characteristics of a substance are called swarup, and the subsequent corollaries are called tatastha lakshan, or marginal characteristics. The glories of the Lord's marginal characteristics prove him to be the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the son of Maharaj Nanda. As soon as one understands this, one accepts Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then bestowed his causeless mercy upon all the people there, and everyone became ecstatic with love of God. Finally, they all returned to their homes. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu remained for some days in Akura Tirtha. He delivered everyone there simply by distributing the holy name of Krishna and ecstatic love for the Lord. The Brahmin disciple of Madhavendra Puri went from house to house in Mathura and inspired other Brahmanas to invite Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to their homes. Thus all the respectable people of Mathura, headed by the Brahmanas, came to Balabhadra Bhattacharya and extended invitations to the Lord. In one day, 10 to 20 invitations were received, but Balabhadra Bhattacharya would accept only one of them. Since not everyone got an opportunity to offer invitations to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally, those who did not requested the Sanudiya Brahmana to ask the Lord to accept their invitations. You know, in the memories of Srila Prabhupada, Hansaduta Prabhu mentioned that when he was Prabhupada's secretary, he got so many invitations, and the reason he was getting, because they'd ask Prabhupada and he'd say yes, and then they'd come to Hansaduta and he couldn't possibly accommodate all of them, so he'd say we can't do it, and then the people would become angry with him. So Hansaduta a little sheepishly went to Prabhupada later and said, Prabhupada, you're telling everybody yes, and I have to tell them no, and they become angry at me. And then Prabhupada said, it is my business to tell them yes, it is your business to tell them no. the brahmanas from different places, such as Kanyakubja and South India, who were all strict followers of the Vedic religion, offered invitations to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great humility. In the morning they would come to Akrura Tirtha and cook food, and offering it to the Shalagram Shila, they offered it to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport. There are brahmanas known as Panchagoda brahmanas, who come from 5 places in northern India, and there are brahmanas known as Pancha Dakshinatya brahmanas, who come from 5 places in southern India. In northern India, the places are Kanyakubja, Saraswata, Gauda, Matila, and Udkal. In southern India, the places are Andhra, Karnataka, Gujarat, Dravida, and Maharashtra. The brahmanas from these places are considered to be very strict followers of the Vedic principles, and they are accepted as pure brahmanas. They strictly observe Vedic principles and are not polluted by tantric misdeeds. All these brahmanas respectfully invited Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for lunch. Ek din she akura ghatera upare, bashe Mahaprabhu kichu karina bichare. One day Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat at the bathing ghat of Akrura Tirtha and thought the following thoughts. Purport. Akrura Tirtha is located on the road between Vrindavan and Mathura. When Krishna and Balaram were being taken to Mathura by Akrura, the Lord rested at this place and took his bath in the Jamuna. When Krishna and Balaram took their baths, Akrura saw the entire world of Vaikuntha within the water. The inhabitants of Vrindavan also saw the Vaikuntha planets within the water. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought, at this bathing place, Akrura saw Vaikuntha, the spiritual world, and all the inhabitants of Raj saw Goloka Vrindavan. While considering how Akrura remained within the water, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately jumped in and stayed underwater for some time. When Krishnadas saw that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was drowning, he cried and shouted very loudly. Balabhadra Bhattacharya immediately came and pulled the Lord out. After this, Balabhadra Bhattacharya took the Sanodiya Brahmana to a secluded place and consulted with him. Balabhadra Bhattacharya said, since I was present today, it was possible for me to pull the Lord up. But if he starts to drown at Vrindavan, who will help him? Now there is a crowd of people here, and these invitations are causing much disturbance. In addition, the Lord is always ecstatic and emotional. I do not find the situation here very good. It would be good if we could get Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu out of Vrindavan. That is my final conclusion. The Sanodiya Brahmana said, let us take him to Prayag and go along the banks of the Ganges. It will be very pleasurable to go that way. After going to the holy place named Sorokshetra and bathing in the Ganges, let us take Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that way and go. It is now the beginning of the month of Mahag. If we go to Prayag at this time, we shall have an opportunity to bathe for a few days during Makara Sankranti. Purport. Bathing during the month of Mahag at Magh Mela still takes place. This is a very old Mela, dating from time immemorial. It is said that ever since the Lord in the form of Mohini took a bucket of nectar and kept it at Prayag, holy men have gathered there every year and observed the Magh Mela. Every 12th year there is a Kumbh Mela, a great festival, and all the holy men from all over India assemble there. The Brahmana wanted to take advantage of the Magh Mela and bathe there. Bathing at the confluence of the Ganges and Jamuna near the fort at Allahabad, Prayag, is mentioned in the revealed scriptures. If one goes to Prayag and bathes at the confluence of the Ganges and Jamuna in the month of Magh, he attains the results of giving hundreds and thousands of cows in charity. Simply by bathing for 3 days there, he attains the results of such pious activity. Because of this, the Sanodiya Brahmana was very eager to go to Prayag and bathe. Generally, karmis, fruitive laborers, take advantage of bathing there during the month of Magh, thinking that they will be rewarded in the future. Those who are situated in devotional service do not very strictly follow this karma kandya process. Everyone okay? The Sanadiya Brahma continued, kindly submit to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu the unhappiness you are feeling within yourself. Then propose that we all go to Prayag on the full moon day of the month of Magh. Tell the Lord of the happiness you will feel in traveling via the bank of the Ganges. Balabhadra Bhattacharya therefore submitted this prayer to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Balabhadra Bhattacharya told the Lord, I can no longer tolerate the disturbance of the crowd. People are coming one after another to offer invitations. Early in the morning people come here. Not seeing you present, they simply tax my brain. I will be very happy if we all leave and take the path by the banks of the Ganges. Then we can have the opportunity of bathing in the Ganges at Prayag during Makara Sankranti. Purport. There are two great occasions for bathing in the Ganges during Magh Mela. One is the day of the dark moon, and the other is on the day of the full moon during the month of Magh. My mind has become very much agitated. I cannot bear this anxiety. Now everything rests on the permission of your Lordship. I will accept whatever you want to do. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had no desire to leave Vrindavan, he began to speak sweet words just to fulfill the desire of his devotee. Tumi amai ani, dekhai la Vrindavan. Endra ami nakiba karita shodana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you have brought me here to show me Vrindavan. I am very much indebted to you, and I shall not be able to repay this debt. Whatever you desire, I must do. Wherever you take me, I shall go. The next morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got up early. After taking his bath, he became ecstatic with love, knowing that he had to leave Vrindavan. Although the Lord did not exhibit any external symptoms, his mind was filled with ecstatic love. At that time, Balabhadra Bhattacharya said, let us go to Mahavan, Gokula. Saying this, Balabhadra Bhattacharya made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sit aboard a boat. After they crossed the river, he took the Lord with him. Both Rajaput Krishnadas and the Sanatiya Brahmin knew the path along the Ganges bank very well. While walking, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, understanding that the others were fatigued, took them all beneath a tree and sat down. There were many cows grazing near that tree, and the Lord was very pleased to see them. Suddenly, a cowherd boy blew on his flute, and immediately the Lord was struck with ecstatic love. Filled with ecstatic love, the Lord fell to the ground unconscious. He foamed about the mouth, and his breathing stopped. While the Lord was unconscious, 10 cavalry soldiers belonging to the Muslim Patana military order rode up and dismounted. Seeing the Lord unconscious, the soldiers thought, this sannyasi must have possessed a large quantity of gold. These 4 rogues here must have taken away that sannyasi's riches after killing him by making him take the poison Dutura. Thinking this, the Patana soldiers arrested the 4 persons and decided to kill them. Because of this, the 2 Bengalis began to tremble. Purport. The 4 persons were Balabhadra Bhattacharya, his assistant Brahmana, Rajput Krishnadas, and the Sanodiya Brahmana devotee of Madhavendra Puri.
We just had an amazing class on Monday morning. The Madhavendra Puri narrated this past time.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Did a great job.
Amazing that I picked up the same place.
Yeah.
The devotee Krishnadas, who belonged to the Rajput race, was very fearless. The Sanadiya Brahmana was also fearless, and he spoke very bravely. Biprakahe, Patana Tomar, Patara Dohai, Chal Tume Ami, Shiktar Pashjai. The Brahmin said, "You Patana soldiers are all under the protection of your king. Let us go to your commander and get his decision. This sannyasi is my spiritual master, and I am from Mathura. I am a Brahmana, and I know many people who are in the service of the Muslim king. This sannyasi sometimes falls unconscious due to the influence of a disease. Please sit down here, and you will see that he will very soon regain consciousness in his normal condition. Sit down here for a while and keep us under arrest. When the sannyasi regains his senses, you can question him. Then if you like, you can kill us all." The Patana soldiers said, "You are all rogues. One of you belongs to the western lands, one to the district of Mathura, and the other two, who are trembling, belong to Bengal." Rajput Krishadas said, "I have my home here, and I also have about 200 Turkish soldiers and about 100 cannons. If I call loudly, they will come immediately to kill you and plunder your horses and saddles. The Bengali pilgrims are not rogues. You are rogues, for you want to kill the pilgrims and plunder them." Upon hearing this challenge, the Patana soldiers became hesitant. Then suddenly, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu regained consciousness. "Hunkar Korya Ute Bale Hari Hari Prema Veshe Nrityakari Urva Bahukari." Coming to his senses, the Lord very loudly began chanting the holy names. Hari Hari! Hari Hari! The Lord raised his arms upward and began to dance in ecstatic love. When the Lord shouted very loudly in ecstatic love, it appeared to the Muslim soldiers that their hearts were struck with thunderbolts. Seized by fear, all the Patana soldiers immediately released the 4 persons. Thus Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu did not see his personal associates arrested. At that time, Balabhadra Bhattacharya went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and made him sit down. Seeing the Muslim soldiers, the Lord regained his normal senses. All the Muslim soldiers then came before the Lord, worshipped his lotus feet, and said, "Here are 4 rogues. These rogues have made you take dutura. Having made you mad, they have taken all your possessions." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "These are not rogues, they are my associates. Being a sannyasi beggar, I do not possess anything. Due to epilepsy, I sometimes fall unconscious. Out of their mercy, these 4 men maintain me." Among the Muslims was a grave person who was wearing a black dress. People called him a saintly person. The heart of that saintly person softened upon seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wanted to talk to him and establish impersonal Brahman on the basis of his own scripture, the Quran. When that person tried to establish the impersonal Brahman conception of the Absolute Truth on the basis of the Quran, seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refuted his argument. Whatever arguments he put forth, the Lord refuted them all. Finally, the person became stunned and could not speak. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "The Quran certainly establishes impersonalism, but at the end, it refutes that impersonalism and establishes the personal God. The Quran accepts the fact that ultimately there is only one God. He is full of opulence, and his bodily complexion is blackish." Purport: the revealed scriptures of the Muslims is the Quran. There is one Muslim sampradaya known as the Sufis. The Sufis accept impersonalism, believing that the oneness of the living entity with the absolute, believing in the oneness of the living entity with the absolute truth. Their supreme slogan is Analahak. 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 You just say it. Huh? Analahak. It means that the living entity is one with this. So if you meet a Sufi on Sankirtan, you can say Analahak. The Sufi Sampradaya was certainly derived from Shankaracharya's impersonalists. According to the Quran, the Lord, this is Mahaprabhu continuing, according to the Quran, the Lord has a supreme, blissful, transcendental body. He is the absolute truth, the all-pervading, omniscient, and eternal being. He is the origin of everything. Creation, maintenance, and dissolution come from Him. He is the original shelter of all gross and subtle cosmic manifestations. The Lord is the supreme truth, worshipable by everyone. He is the cause of all causes. By engaging in His devotional service, the living entity is relieved from material existence. No conditioned soul can get out of material bondage without serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Love at His lotus feet is the ultimate goal of life. Right to the point. Purport. According to the Muslim scripture, without ibadat, offering prayers at a mosque or elsewhere 5 times daily, namaz, one cannot be successful in life. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu pointed out that in the revealed scriptures of the Muslims, love of Godhead is the ultimate goal. Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga are certainly described in the Quran. But ultimately, the Quran states that the ultimate goal is the offering of prayers to the Supreme Person, ibadat. The happiness of liberation, whereby one merges into the Lord's existence, cannot even be compared to a fragment of the transcendental bliss obtained by service unto the Lord's lotus feet. In the Quran, there are descriptions of fruitive activity, speculative knowledge, mystic power, and union with the Supreme, but ultimately all this is refuted by the Lord's personal feature established. In the Quran, there are descriptions of fruitive activity, speculative knowledge, mystic yoga, and union with the Supreme, but ultimately all this is refuted and the Lord's personal feature established, along with His devotional service. The scholars of the Quran are not very advanced in knowledge. Although there are many methods described, they do not know that the ultimate conclusion should be considered the most powerful. Seeing your own Quran and deliberating over what is written there, what is your conclusion? The saintly Muslim replied, all you have said is true. This has certainly been written in the Quran, but our scholars can neither understand it nor accept it. Usually they describe the Lord's impersonal aspect, but they hardly know that the Lord's personal feature is worshipable. They are undoubtedly lacking this knowledge. Purport. The saintly Muslim admitted that those who were supposedly conversant in the teachings of the Quran could not ultimately understand the essence of the Quran. Because of this, they accepted only the Lord's impersonal feature. Generally, they recite and explain this portion only. Although the transcendental body of the Lord is worshipable, most of them are unaware of this. Since you are that very same Supreme Personality of God in Himself, please be merciful upon me. I am fallen and unfit. I have studied the Muslim scriptures very extensively, but from it I cannot conclusively decide what is the ultimate goal of life. I have studied the Muslim scriptures very extensively, but from it I cannot conclusively decide what the ultimate goal of life is or how I can approach it. Now that I have seen you, my tongue is chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The false prestige I felt from being a learned scholar is now gone. Saying this, the saintly Muslim fell at the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and requested him to speak of life's ultimate goal and the process by which it could be obtained. Prabhu kahe, Utta Krishna Nam Tumi Layila, Koti Janmera Papa Gela, Pavitra Haila. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, please get up. You have chanted the holy name of Krishna. Therefore, the sinful reactions you have accrued for millions of lives are now gone. You are now pure. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then told the Muslims there, chant the holy names of Krishna. Chant the holy names of Krishna. As they all began to chant, they were overwhelmed by ecstatic love. Ramdas Bali, Prabhu tar koil naam, ar ek patan tar naam Vijulikan. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly initiated the saintly Muslim by advising him to chant the holy name of Krishna. The Muslim's name was changed to Ram Das. Another Patan Muslim present there was named Vijuli Khan. Purport. After being initiated, the devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement changed their names. Whenever a person in the Western world becomes interested in this Krishna consciousness movement, he is initiated by this process. In India, we are falsely accused of converting Mlechas and Yavanas to the Hindu religion. In India, there are many Mayavad sannyasis known as Jagat Guru, although they have hardly visited the whole world. Some are not even sufficiently educated, yet they make accusations against our movement and accuse us of destroying the principles of the Hindu religion by accepting Muslims and Yavanas as Vaishnavas. Such people are simply envious. We are not spoiling the Hindu system of religion, but are simply following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by traveling all over the world and accepting those who are interested in understanding traveling all over the world and accepting those who are interested in understanding Krishna as Krishna Das or Ram Das. By the process of a bona fide initiation, their names are changed. Let's just take a few reflections before we go into the next part about Vijuli Khan. Prabhu.
Reflections, do they have to be specifically about Vijuli Khan?
No.
Why did Lord Chaitanya lie to them?
Why did Lord Chaitanya lie to them?
Yeah, because he'd already came out of, he regained consciousness, and he went Hari Bol or Hari, and they paid obeisances.
Yeah, I'm going to repeat it. He
Okay.
came out of consciousness. He came out of being unconscious in
he
ecstasy,
went to
and he said
ecstasy,
Hari
and he
Bol,
chanted in
ecstasy.
right?
Then
and then they paid obeisances.
paid obeisances.
And then then they proceeded to tell Lord Chaitanya what they were doing,
And
why
they
they were
were-
doing what they were doing.
Then the soldiers were saying why they had arrested everybody and why they were there.
Right. And Lord Chaitanya
Lord Chaitanya
interrupted them and corrected them.
interrupted and corrected
And
them.
he said, "Oh, actually, I'm a sannyasi.
Actually,
I
I'm a
get epilepsy."
sannyasi. I have epilepsy.
And so I go into unconsciousness, and so why did he? They were already.
Well, he
impressed
tried
by him.
explaining to a policeman about love of God. I once was in Penn Station and I got kicked out, and then I went back in, and the guy took me in the back room and beat me with his cane. I said, "But we're only here to try to spread the love of God." And he said, "You go back and you tell your Swami, Guru, or whoever it is that we hate God here." I mean, you got to be a little diplomatic in public, right? Especially when the cops come. There's the cops, and then what do? You just give them a plausible story. Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. It looks like it's so easy for Lord Chaitanya to convert those.
It looks like it's so easy for Lord Chaitanya to convert the Muslims
Muslims into devotees.
into devotees.
So I'm distributing books on the peer practically every day, and every day there are so many Muslims.
So I'm working on the pier
walk
every
by
day, and there's so
to
many
my,
Muslims
book
who walk
table,
by the book table,
But none of them show
None of them are
interest,
surrendering at your feet. And
So, is there any technique? That
is there
we
any
can,
technique?
Uh,
Well, there are a couple things. One is that there was a different ethos in previous ages when there were debates. There was actually a point at which somebody would say, "Okay, I accept." That's not there anymore in Kali Yuga, in an advanced Kali Yuga. Even when somebody's soundly defeated, they'll. And Prabhupada told that story. There was these two men walking by the side of a lake, and they saw a piece of paper on the ground that had a bifurcation, and one of them said, "Aha, that must have been cut by some scissors," and the other one said, "No, it was torn." And back and forth.
Rock.
Oh, the other one said it was a rock. Okay, had caused the bifurcation. So they got in an argument back and forth. So the rock guy grabbed the other one, threw him in the water. He was stronger, and he was starting to drown him. And then he let him up for a minute, and he said, "Admit that it was a rock." And pushed his head back under the water, and the guy, as bubbles were coming up and he was drowning, he put his fingers up and went like this. Scissors. Rather die than give in. I mean, that's one point. And the other point is Lord Chaitanya, being personally present definitely has a strong effect. I mean, we saw Prabhupada sometimes when people would just see him and the environment around him. I saw at the airport once, there was, Pragosh had talked to this soldier and he said, yeah, our spiritual master's coming in. We were waiting for him to get off the plane. And when Prabhupada got off the plane, all the devotees were waiting there. And all the devotees offered obeisances on the ground. And this soldier, who had just got a Krishna book about 5 minutes ago, he also offered obeisances. Because it's like, this is what you do. So you had to have been there, kind of thing. It's a heavy place you go to down there. People walking by. It's not all the same. Who was Prabhu?
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was giving mercy. He was giving mercy to anybody.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was giving mercy to anybody.
Qualified, unqualified.
Qualified, unqualified.
But, in the beginning...
But in the
before
beginning...
I start to read again, Krishna, he chose to give, this his choice to give mercy to somebody. So
But we
what was
talked in the
base?
earlier break about Krishna
Was the main-
choosing to give.
yeah, what's the main factor of why he's choosing to give to this one and not to that one? What is the main essence of his choice?
Yeah, that's a perennial question. Why does Krishna choose one person and not another? It's answered in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam. That's the first question that's asked by Parikshit to Shukadeva Goswami. He says, why does it seem like Krishna likes the demigods and doesn't like the demons? And Shukadeva says, it's not like that at all. Actually, he's equal to everybody, but those who are more qualified, like the Devas are in the mode of goodness, therefore it appears they're getting more mercy, and they are, because they're open to it. And so Prabhupada gives the example of a student in a class. If somebody's a good student and they listen really carefully, then it appears like the teacher's giving them a lot more. And the other one that's snoozing or not paying attention or comes in high or whatever it is, it doesn't pick up on the stuff, and it's like, wow, the teacher didn't give you any favor. So it's actually Lord Chaitanya and Krishna, they're giving mercy here, there, and everywhere. Lord Chaitanya especially so, because it's mentioned, Maya mrigam dayate ipsitam anbadavat. He runs after the souls to give them mercy. But according to whether they take it or not, that's their prerogative ultimately. Prabhu?
It's explained in reading how a living being...
It's explained where?
Your reading.
Oh, and it's
Living
said in the
being,
reading, yes?
They are always in tatasha,
Living beings are tatasta,
tatastha, marginal.
marginal.
So when we go to spiritual world...
What are we getting in the fall of Jiva now? Okay, go ahead.
Hopefully, in this 100 lifetimes, did we still, is it the very scripture, reference in scriptures, then I hear we still always maintain this tataksha nature. We can never be like expansion of Krishna, like gopis, cowboys, they're always Vishnu Tattva. Where is this statement in the scriptures? Then we always maintain, even in spiritual world, we always...
Prabhupada keeps this particular topic really simple. For instance, in the 13th chapter, 20th verse, lights on that thing, by the way. Yeah. The 13th chapter, 20th verse in his purport, Prabhupada talks about the living entity, and he's coming to the material world, and he says, it really doesn't matter how he came to the material world. And there are two kinds of living entities, the Nityabhada and Nityasiddha. And when the Nityabhada, either by kripa, by mercy, or by sadhana, attains siddha, becomes perfect, then becomes a siddha. And so then Prabhupada mentions a siddha siddha is a siddha. You don't consider that was a nitya bhara, now it's a nitya siddha. Once you're siddha, you're siddha. Because in one sense, as is pointed out in the Bhagavatam, in several places, it sounds a little funny, but it's a philosophical truth that the living entity is never really liberated, because we're never really conditioned in another way. We're covered over. It appears that we're covered by, and we are, by the material nature, but once we come out of that covering, we realize our nature. This is mentioned by Narada, and he says, I realize that I am and the Lord are the same quality. I'm also transcendental. Asangokyayam Purusha, I actually have nothing to do with the material nature. It's not, it's completely foreign to me.
I heard a
Prabhu?
different question. I heard the question.
I know, I'm evading it. Because it's a perennial question.
No, the question I heard was: is the jiva ever able to become something other than the jiva? He was asking, can the jiva become an expansion or?
No, those, as we know from our sadhana, as mentioned in the Nectar of Instruction, Tannama Rupa Charitadu Sikirtananu Smrityo Kramena Rasana Manasini Yoja Tishtam Vraje Tananuragi Jananugami Kalam Nayet Akilamitu Padesha Saram. So the essence of all advice is that one should hear chant, remember, 24 hours a day, taking a shot at it, and by the process, then gradually what happens? One becomes an anuragi. An anuragi means one who follows in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavana. Prabhupada explains very clearly in the Nectar Devotion that means that it's not that. Well, first of all, what an anuragi means is after hearing and chanting sufficiently and overcoming the anartas, and going through anarta nivritti and then ruchi, then there's a way in which the living entity becomes particularly attracted to hearing about a particular resident in Vraj, and then becomes more specialized in hearing about a particular. It shouldn't be done prematurely, because that's what the Gopi Baba Club was here. It was a premature attempt to be an anuragi, and then we're only going to listen to this. However, those, for instance, who become attracted to hearing about the parental rasa, it's not that they become Mother Yashoda. I'm answering the question now, right? They don't become Mother Yashoda, but they're always doing service to assist or in the mood, like glorifying, appreciating, following anuragi. They're following in the footsteps of Yashoda. But all those parshadas, they're eternal associates of the Lord. They have their eternal positions, and the living entities, then they fall into different camps. Like those who are followers of Nityananda Prabhu, as explained in the Caitanya Charitamrita, are generally in the friendly rasa in the spiritual world.
Are they jivas?
Who?
These parashads, are they jivas?
No, they're not described as jivas. They're a different category. Uh-oh. One, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, we see throughout Gaura Lila.
We see throughout Gaura Lila
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu making people pure devotees practically
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu making pure devotees practically instantly.
But then we see in Rupa Goswami's
But then we see in Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Samrita Sindhu
that he categorizes devotional service, particularly the attainment of Bhava Bhakti, as being rarely attained. So how do we reconcile those two?
How do we reconcile the two? What's the first thing?
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving mercy very unlimitedly, like that's the position of Mahaprabhu in Kali Yuga, but then his followers saying it's rarely attained.
Yeah. Do you have to go? Oh, okay.
No.
Well, rarely attained, first of all, is described that the reason it's rarely attained. I was just thinking about this today. It's rarely attained that people chant 16 rounds. And the reason most people don't chant 16 rounds, even if they say they do, many people don't, is because before you chant 16 rounds, you actually have to get to 12. And before you get to 16, you got to get 14. That's hard. Getting to 16 is not hard after 14, but to get to 14 is hard, because by 8 or 10, there's this idea like, shouldn't I go do something else? I'll do them later or something like that. So Rupa Goswami explains, asakti means that you're really only interested in Krishna consciousness. There's nothing else. That's your main thing. And people in any discipline who are going to be in the topmost position, they have to really be focused on it. If you're going to go to the Olympics and run a 2 mile, you better be into it and be doing it. So most people don't come to that point of being like totally into it, because before you come to bhava, you have to come to asakti. And so not that many people give up everything and simply concentrate on devotional service. I haven't answered your question yet. But, I mean, Caitanya Mahaprabhu, as we could see, I mean, I was just thinking as you were asking the question, it's very rare for people in general at any time to take to devotional service. Krishna says that himself in the Bhagavad Gita. Manushyanam sahasreshu kashid yatati siddhaye yatatamapi siddhanam kashin mambeti tatvataha. And Prabhupada quoted that a lot of times, because devotees often bemoan the fact that people weren't coming to Krishna consciousness. Although we see a movement now, and there is a movement. There are a few people compared to the population of the planet. A few of us here. A lot of people walking by and not listening to the Chaitanya Charitamrita or driving on the 405. And so generally most people aren't interested in spiritual life at all. And the ones that are don't really get into the personalist philosophy and want to surrender and say, yeah, I'm going to go for the whole thing. However, when a great reformer comes and creates an environment in which it's possible, like look at Prabhupada, when he created a movement where there's an environment where it made it possible. It's practically impossible for anybody to surrender to Krishna. But when there's a big movement like this and you can walk in and see the deities and go to Govinda's and have prasadam, and then somebody comes up to you and says, hey, you want to chant? They'll show you how to do it. It's possible. And when Caitanya Mahaprabhu came, he brought with him Priyartham. He brings the whole spiritual world and manifests it there with his own personal potency. Prabhupada says, or Parama Karuna, Pahundwijana, Nitai Gaura Chandra. In that song, it's mentioned that stones would melt when they'd hear the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and also he made tigers dance and even kiss. And Prabhupada says, we may not be able to get tigers, but we can at least try with human beings. So people have different potencies. Prabhupada obviously had a potency to go all over the world, and people would just see him, because an Uttam Bhagavat is one. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, when somebody sees that person, they start chanting Hare Krishna. A Madhyama is somebody who's always chanting Hare Krishna. And but the Uttam, that's the one that people see him and they start chanting. So what to speak of Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But keep in mind that Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Haridas Thakur, they went door to door, and a lot of people slammed the door on him. You imagine Lord Nityananda comes to your door and is like, no, I'm not interested. It happens. They weren't into it. So it's still the choice of living entity. But anyway, to answer the question, the potency of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the loving network, as is mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that he created, gave opportunity for people to take full advantage. But speak of even in Krishna's pastimes, there's different kinds of living entities. For instance, when Krishna comes, you see lots of living entities who immediately come into his pastimes. They're on reserve. For instance, the sages at Dandakaranya. The Dandakaranya sages saw Ramachandra, they became enamored of him, and they thought, we'd like to marry you. They had this conjugal feeling, which is kind of like the Adi Ras. And then he didn't speak to them, but mentally communicated with them that you will come in a later time. Right now, I'm Ekapatni Vrat. I only take one wife, and this is my program in this, appearance. But when I come as Krishna, then I will fulfill your desire. He always fulfills the desires of every living entity. So then that may have been many millennia before, but then when they come into Krishna's pastimes, they are immediately accommodated.
They're the Munichari gopis or something?
The Munichari gopis. They're different categories. We're out of time. We're past time.
This afternoon.
Okay, well, nobody told me. We'll just have a really, really short kirtan.
You finished that pastime.
But we left you hanging. And Savas Prabhu, thanks for coming. It made all the difference in the world in my book. And we're taking it up again right after lunch at 3:30.
We do that pastime with the Najapi, the drunken governor in the afternoon.
You will get, just you will get. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Panchakalpadrivascha kripasindhave cha patitanam bhavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. See you at 3.